In the headlines this evening, President Park Geun-hye is back in Korea after wrapping up her four-nation tour to the Middle East. The first thing on her schedule back at home was a visit to the U.S. ambassador who was attacked last week. The government reportedly has a goal of significantly boosting domestic demand in the first half of the year. This includes injecting $9 billion into the economy to prop up business sentiments. Plus, 5 men are arrested in the ongoing probe into the assassination of Russia's opposition activist Boris Nemtsov. These stories and more just ahead. Stay with us. Hello and welcome everyone. You're watching Early Edition at 6, live from Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. We begin with President Park Geun-hye's week-long trip to the Middle East, which took her to Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar.
That's right. She has returned to Korea with prospects for stronger and much more active cooperation with the region.
Our Chae Yoo-sun takes us through some of the achievements from the presidential trip.
Speaking to reporters en route to Seoul, President Park said she felt that Korea's vision for revitalizing the economy through greater economic cooperation with the Middle East is being realized. President Park said that one of the biggest achievements from her trip was helping small to mid-sized Korean firms strike business deals in the region's so-called new industries. In fact, one-on-one business sessions in each of the 4 countries, many of which were attended by SMEs, resulted in 44 bilateral agreements totaling $900 million. The agreements expand existing oil and construction-centered cooperation into the fields of nuclear energy, agriculture, healthcare, ICT, and culture. These post-oil era initiatives, the president said, are in line with Seoul's economic innovation plan.
Previously energy-focused, these countries have started seeking multi-dimensional development, and that's helped us rediscover the Middle East and encourage the region to once again recognize Korea as an important partner.
As for the specific areas of cooperation, the presidential office listed Korea's first export of its creative economy model to Saudi Arabia, a deal between Korea and the UAE to develop Korea's halal industry, and an establishment of a cultural center in Abu Dhabi. The presidential office said dozens of deals were made mainly because Koreans' expertise, credibility, and hardworking style have helped build trust in the region.
그렇지만 국가 간의 신뢰를 중시 여기고 노력해 나간다면 중도금 그걸로 인해서 제2의 부흥도 일으킬 수 있다고 많은 믿음을 갖고 하게 됐습니다.
To sustain the momentum, Seoul plans to monitor the progress of the deals with these 4 countries and boost cooperation to ensure they are implemented. Chae Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
And immediately upon arriving in Seoul, President Park went to visit U.S. Ambassador to South Korea Mark Lippert, who is making a fast recovery from last week's knife attack. He is expected to be discharged from the hospital tomorrow afternoon. Here's Arirang's Hwang Sung-hee with more.
Doctors say Ambassador Lippert will likely be out of the hospital by Tuesday afternoon. The U.S. envoy needed 80 stitches on his face and arm following a brutal knife attack last week in central Seoul.
We are planning to remove half the stitches this morning and the other half tomorrow morning. If there's no problem, he will leave the hospital tomorrow afternoon.
The 55-year-old assailant, Kim Ki-jong, who is now under arrest, was protesting the ongoing joint military drills between Seoul and Washington. The attack raised concerns about whether it would leave a dent in relations between the 2 allies. But President Park Geun-hye, visiting the ambassador on Monday, said his handling of the incident had strengthened the alliance.
대사님이 의연하고 또 담대하게 이렇게 대처하시는 모습을 보고 미국과 한국 양국의 국민들이 큰 감동을 받았습니다. 오히려 한미 관계가 더 가까워지는 계기가 되고 있다고 생각합니다.
President Park headed over to the hospital upon her return from the Middle East, saying she was saddened by the news since she too was a victim of a similar attack back in 2006. The doctors treating Ambassador Lippert say he is in good spirits and eager to get back to work as soon as possible. 황상희, Arirang News.
And as for the ambassador's assailant, Kim Ki-jong, North Korea slammed South Korea for labeling him and his actions as pro-North Korean. North Korea's official daily, the Rodong-sinmun, says Seoul is trying to justify Washington's attempts to put Pyongyang back on its list of state sponsor of terrorism. Since Thursday's attack, the North Korean media has been hailing the slashing as a, quote, deserved punishment for U.S. hostilities. Meanwhile, South Korean authorities are investigating whether Kim may have violated the national security law, which bans South Koreans from publicly supporting the North Korean government. He reportedly said during his interrogation that late North Korean leader Kim Il-sung was a great leader from the 20th century. And staying with North Korea, there's growing speculation that North Korea is advancing its nuclear ambitions. Speculations strong enough to urge the U.S. administration to pay more attention to the situation in the north. Ji Myung-gil has more.
North Korea is seeking to build ever better nuclear weapons, and the Washington Post says the growing evidence of that should prompt the Obama administration to take action to stop it. But the U.S. may already be moving in that direction. A separate report by Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency citing diplomatic sources in Washington says the U.S. might push for direct talks with North Korea next month and could use its international clout to stop the North from upgrading its nuclear capabilities. The sources note, however, that the Iranian nuclear issue is more of a priority for Washington now. The Post cites U.S. researchers who say the North nuclear weapons program has gathered momentum and that it could expand rapidly over the next 5 years. A recent report by the U.S. Korea Institute at the School of Advanced International Studies of Johns Hopkins University, based on data from the Institute for Science and International Security, concludes that Pyongyang could increase its stockpile of 10 to 16 nuclear warheads and expand it to 100 in the worst case by 2020. The report highlights the North's efforts to upgrade its technologies to produce road mobile and solid fuel missiles. Most of North Korea's missiles use liquid fuel. Still, many technological uncertainties remain, including how much fissile material North Korea can produce and whether scientists or engineers can overcome the steep technical challenges. Despite the challenges, Pyongyang has surprised the international community before with its nuclear capabilities, such as by revealing a uranium enrichment plant in 2010. The report advises having a clear-eyed view of the North's nuclear weapons capabilities to keep the North in check. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Authorities in Russia have made 5 arrests in the ongoing probe into who killed Boris Nemtsov, an outspoken Kremlin critic. All 5 are said to be of Chechen origin. 2 of those suspects have been charged by a Moscow court. Arkani Kim reports.
A Moscow court has charged 2 men accused of plotting to kill Russian opposition leader Boris Nemtsov, an outspoken Kremlin critic. Zaur Dadayev, a former police officer who fought Islamic insurgents, admitted he was involved in the killing, while the second suspect, Anzor Gubashev, pleaded innocent. Russian state television showed the men's arrival in court wearing handcuffs and covering their faces. 3 other suspects have been jailed. And all 5 men are of Chechen origin, which could potentially be a sensitive issue in Russia, as many Russians view Chechens as violent extremists. A 6th suspect reportedly blew himself up with a grenade in a standoff with police in the Chechen capital of Grozny. Nemtsov was assassinated in late February, days before he was set to address a major anti-government rally. He was also to publish a report on the Russian military's involvement in the war in Ukraine, despite Moscow's denial that it has supplied separatists with troops and weapons. The biggest question now is who ordered Nemtsov's assassination. Some of his supporters have gone so far as to say the Russian government was behind the killing. Russian officials deny that, and President Vladimir Putin has condemned the killing and pledged to do everything to find and prosecute the killers. Nemtsov's shooting is the most high-profile killing of an opposition figure since Putin came to power in 2000. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
In this week's Industry Insight, we're going to talk about Korea's animated character market. The industry is said to have made huge strides forward in recent years.
But has Pororo the bespectacled penguin, has it boosted the ante up beyond the stratosphere? We fear he may have, because many other characters are struggling to reach that level of stardom. Well, our Kim Min-ji tells us exactly where Korea stands and also about what it can do to reach that next level.
This 90-second cartoon featuring two larvae and their quirky adventures inside a dream is entertaining enough to attract viewers both young and old, even without dialogue. Created by Tuba Entertainment in 2011, Larva is now broadcast in over 100 countries and is being made into more than 1,000 products.
From the early stages of development, we focused on multinationalization. Body language is somewhat universal, so we could easily create a sensation across different markets.
But it's just one of few success stories. Korea has a relatively short history in the character business and lacks infrastructure and global networks. On top of this, there's still a deep-rooted perception that cartoon characters are just for kids.
Disney's Frozen is an example of an animation that can be enjoyed by the whole family. Korean characters need to target people of all ages, as a larger consumer base will boost the market.
So where does Korea's industry stand? The local character market has grown over 60% in the last 5 years, and it's expected to top $8 billion this year. But despite the exponential growth, it makes up less than 5% of the global market. Analysts say the government needs to open communication channels for local companies to connect with distributors and licensors from around the world. Case in point, the Culture Ministry plans to invest $350 million into the character and animation industries over the next 5 years.
From the fostering of artists to facilitating production and exports, we plan to provide companies with comprehensive assistance.
Roy Visual, creator of hit animated TV show Robocar Polly, says the drive is sure to boost Korea's potential.
Korea has the manpower, so with systematic support for the process of creating a character or animation, local companies will be able to create stronger and better content.
With the right reinforcements and time, experts say Korea will be able to produce characters as iconic as Mickey Mouse. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Business partners face a one-day entry ban.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best. With Laah Hyun-kyung and Daniel Choy.
Arirang News.
Arirang News.
Arirang News.
On Early Edition at 6.
A law revision that will require daycare centers to install security cameras was voted down last week at the National Assembly, but the ruling party has vowed to pass that revision in the upcoming extraordinary session in April. Lawmakers who objected to the bill say it would be a violation of privacy and infringe on daycare teachers' rights. The ruling party says it will rework the bill to address the privacy concerns and reintroduce it during next month's session. This comes after public demand for the legislation grew following a string of child abuse cases at daycare centers in recent months.
The government is planning to focus on boosting domestic demand in the first half of the year amid deflationary pressures. One of the ways it plans to achieve that goal is to invest $9 billion into the economy. Our Shin Se-min has the details.
The government will spend the money in its Economic Revitalization Fund earmarked for the entire year, or roughly $9 billion in the first half of the year. The decision comes amid a growing urgency to help lift the economy out of the doldrums. The money is from the $41 billion revitalization fund set up by the finance ministry last year, according to a ministry official. The nation's economic outlook is still foggy. The latest corporate sentiment index hit a 6-month low last month as local companies are anxious about the unfavorable business conditions. And the consumer sentiment index? It's still lower than the level recorded last May, right after a drop in consumer sentiment following the Sewol ferry disaster in April. The state-run Korea Institute of Public Finance says that allocating a larger chunk of the fund in the first half of the year will help grow the economy by 0.23 percentage points as opposed to dispersing it evenly throughout the year. With the move, the government hopes to garner investment, create more jobs, and stimulate domestic spending to prevent the economy from falling into a deflationary period. The government also said that it aims to carry out structural reforms while pressing large conglomerates to raise the minimum wage to revive the economy. Finance Minister Park Geun-hye has repeatedly emphasized the need to raise a minimum wage. But not everyone seems to agree, as Samsung Electronics, considered a key player in corporate Korea, has decided to freeze its wages. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Latest data shows Korea's lowest legal wage is neither that high nor that low compared to other OECD nations. According to numbers released by Economic and Social Development Commission and Korea Employers Federation on Monday, the annual minimum wage stood at just over $12,000 in 2013, ranking Korea 14th out of the 25 OECD member countries surveyed. However, workers and labor unions in Korea say the minimum wage is not something that can be compared by only looking at those numbers and not something that should be compared with other countries. They say there's a huge imbalance between corporate earnings and household income and that the current minimum wage fails to meet even the standard cost of living.
With continuing concerns over deflation, all eyes are on the Bank of Korea's decision this week on its key interest rate. The big question is, will the central bank cut the rate after keeping it steady for 4 months? Son Jung-in has this report.
Alarm bells are ringing for Korea's top economic policymakers after recent data showed the country's inflation rate grew slower than Japan's last year for the first time in over 4 decades and actually recorded negative growth last month. Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan has expressed worries that the Korean economy could be headed down a deflationary path similar to Japan's 20 years ago.
We are deeply worried that the economy is slipping into deflation amid prolonged low consumer price rises. Excluding an increase in cigarette prices, Korea's consumer price growth has moved into negative territory.
Some are demanding the central bank roll up its sleeves to address the worsening situation. Unlike Japan and the Eurozone that are slashing interest rates and easing their monetary policies, Korea has kept its rate steady at 2% for the past 4 months. Amid growing pressure to lower its interest rate, the Bank of Korea is paying close attention to the growing value of the Korean won against the yen and the euro.
Korean exports to Japan and the EU plunged in January. We are watching the appreciation of the won against their currencies.
The Bank of Korea's next rate decision meeting takes place on Thursday. 18 countries have cut rates in the first quarter of 2015. Experts say Korea needs to do the same to help the country's exporters retain some price competitiveness in global markets. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Into some tech news now. Samsung's latest Galaxy S6 has received relatively good reviews globally after it was unveiled ahead of this year's Mobile World Congress in Spain. But will it be enough to cement Samsung's position as one of the power players in the market? Our Song Ji-sun files us this report from Barcelona.
Samsung's distinctive blue and white flags welcomed more than 90,000 visitors to the Korean company's booth at this year's Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. And this year, the spotlight was on Samsung's latest Galaxy S6 smartphone models. With its slimmer design and wireless charging system, the unique look and feel of the phone was what captivated crowds the most.
I noticed that it felt different. It's not like the previous Galaxy S smartphones because Samsung has done a great job with the design of the phone by making the front and the back sides of glass and putting this great metal frame, this very sturdy frame around the device. It's durable, yet it looks amazing.
While the Galaxy S6 was grabbing the most attention, a market follower wanted Samsung spectators to drop by its booth too. Just across from Samsung sits Huawei, the world's fourth largest handset maker. As the event's official sponsor, Huawei had the most floor space, and the Chinese company did not waste an inch of it, displaying everything from handsets to Internet of Things devices such as CarFi, setting up a Wi-Fi environment in a moving car.
And we are very happy to see the friends from everywhere visit our booth, have a discussion, how we benefit from that, and also how we want to share with all the friends what we have in our R&D and our understanding for the future's roadmap.
Huawei also unveiled its first smartwatch, and while its features are not as advanced as those offered by its Korean rivals, the company is expected to gain ground quickly, as 13% of its annual revenue is pumped back into R&D. That's double the 6% Samsung has set aside for R&D over the past 2 years. Market watchers say Korean manufacturers like Samsung and LG are going to have to up their game if they want to stay at the peak of the global market. 송지선, Arirang News, Barcelona.
On a more somber note, almost a year has passed since the sinking of the Sewol ferry. The tragedy left more than 300 people, most of them high school students, dead or missing.
That's right. Efforts to honor the victims and the heroes have continued not only here in Korea, but also in the U.S., where 2 heroines were awarded a special prize for sacrificing their lives to save others. Kwon So-ah has this story.
It's a medal they will never wear. 2 young women who sacrificed their lives to save passengers on the ill-fated Sewol ferry were awarded gold medallions at a chapel in Philadelphia on Sunday for their acts of bravery in the ferry disaster. Choi Hye-jung was a teacher at Tanwon High School, which is where the more than 320 students on the ferry were enrolled. They were on a class trip to Jeju Island. Choi is said to have gone down with the ship to save as many people as possible. Park Geun-hye was a member of the crew who reportedly saved around 50 passengers before she died, handing them life vests without leaving one for herself.
We will think of the prize as an honor given to us by our children and will live our lives in proud service of society.
The 4 Chaplains Memorial Foundation is a non-profit established by U.S. President Harry Truman in 1951 in remembrance of 4 chaplains who went down with a torpedoed cruise ship during World War II after saving other passengers and giving up their own life vests.
We feel that this act by the 2 young ladies, Ms. Choi and Ms. Park, is directly related to the sacrifice of the 4 chaplains.
Former U.S. Presidents Truman, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Jimmy Carter, and Ronald Reagan are also among those who have received the prize for their service to the public. Choi and Park are the first Koreans to be given the award, which now stands as a reminder to people around the world of the sacrifices made on April 16, 2014. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
As you know,
Well, Mother Nature is very fickle-minded these days. We had a mild spring day yesterday, but today it feels like we're back in winter.
Well, I believe we are in for a cold spell, as a matter of fact. Let's turn to our Michelle Park for the latest on the weather front. Michelle.
Hi, Daniel and Hyun-kyung. Now, currently we are about 10 degrees lower than what we had yesterday. And right now, if you look at the temperatures, the readings are expected to drop very quickly into our evening. Now, due to an expanding cold front from China, the nation is in for a cold spell, while some regions such as Jeju Island can even expect sporadic rain or snow. Now, the readings for tomorrow looks to be twice as low as today, with temperatures are to go back up. Seoul at -6 degrees, while Gangwon-do at -10, while Jeju hits 0 degrees. Now looking at the rest of the week, it will stay bright and sunny here in the capital, so you can go out and wash your car this week. And while our temperatures are expected to be up from Wednesday. Now with that in mind, let's check over to our readings for tomorrow. So we'll start off the Tuesday morning at -6 and gets up to 2 in the afternoon, while Daegu and Busan will top out to 4 and 6 degrees. Moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 3, Dokdo hits -1, while Mangkungang dips low to -9 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And that's all we have for you at this hour. Thank you for staying with us. To our viewers in different time zones, do have a wonderful day. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. To our viewers in Korea, have a great rest of the evening. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.